best way to go.
I'm with you. Okay, cool. So welcome to Messages from the Universe. I have Jean behind. Are you still there? Oh, okay. I saw the delay and it looked like you were going back to get your cat. Jean Nolan, who is the founder of the Inspired channel, and he's a great inspiration. I've been watching his channel since I think it started in 2019. And I think when you first started, you were posting a lot of Abraham Hicks content. Is that right?
Yes. Well, first, thank you so much for having me, Cynthia. I appreciate it. And I am the co-founder, actually. My wife and I are doing this together, my wife, Christina, and I. And yeah, it started, I came out of a meditation one morning. This is really how it started. And this is basically, this is the story of everything else that we do too. But I came out of a meditation and I had the clear guidance to start a YouTube channel, call it Inspired. And at that, not just at that time, but I really resonated with the essence of what, the Abraham Hicks teachings are, especially when you're in a time where you are, when you're looking to change something in your life. It was very much what resonated. And so we posted a lot of Abraham Hicks videos and kind of started doing our own thing with it. And that evolved over time. And I always say, we do what's being put in front of us every day. That's really how we show up for this work. And it's turned into what it is today, but I can't tell you that's what it's going to be for forever. It's ever changing, evolving, expanding. That's kind of the whole essence of the Inspired channel.
Yeah, so I was curious about that evolution because I was an avid Abraham follower myself, and actually went to conferences and went on a cruise and all of that. But I do think that there's an expansion beyond that. And
I agree.
And one of the things that I really appreciate that you've been doing, and it's been kind of really resonates with me, and was actually something I kind of wanted to talk about, is, of course, like, not just putting our head in the sand with the things that are happening in the world. And one of the topics that you just recently, you've talked about a few times, but more recently, that one of the biggest challenges I think we're facing is the transhumanism.
Yes. And why the evolution, and this is not just an evolution on the channel. There's a bigger picture. And as I said, I love the essence of what Abraham teaches. And if you go into that, and if you remove all the human conditions that are being attached to that, and all the limitations that people put on it, like people always do, it's pure essence. It's beautiful. The reason why we were expanding and also talking about it in more expansive ways is because people tend to take something and adjust it to their own comfort zone, right? And so, especially in the quote unquote law of attraction community, if you will, in this spiritual community, there's this idea that no action is required whatsoever. You don't need to do anything. You just sit there, you envision what you want, and that's going to come to you. And for most people, that's material things. And so from what the teaching is to how it is being oftentimes portrayed, or how a lot of people live it, there's a big gap. And we just felt that, both my wife and I, that we wanted to fill that gap with something meaningful that bridges this gap. And so part of the things that we believe are not just an imminent threat, but they're here. Like I said, is this idea of transhumanism, that we, for some reason, have basically come to the pinnacle of what we could ever be as biological spiritual beings, and that now we need to be adjusted technologically, or maybe even replaced. And I think first of all, it's a fallacy to think that we're at the pinnacle of our evolution. I think we're just beginning to rediscover who we really are, and how powerful our abilities as humans really are, how our communication with the divine, with nature, with animals, all of that is just beginning to resurface for us. And so if we come in now as a species and cut that cord completely and basically infuse ourselves with technology, that journey is over. That human journey is over, and it is irreversibly over. And so most people don't understand that it's happening, unfortunately, because it's not being talked about in the public realm. There's not really a discussion going on. There's just the newest gadget that you get, the newest phone, and now the newest watch, and soon the newest implant. And whether people want to do it or not, it is freedom. People can, of course, do that.
Right.
But I don't believe that we're having a moral, philosophical, and even evolutionary discussion about this. And this is what bothers me, that especially young people that have been literally born into this technological,
right,
they don't know anything else.
right.
They don't know what it was like to look up stuff in a book, or wait till you could look up something, or think about something. Whenever there's a question, they type it in the phone, and that's the only way to perceive information. And we're just, it's one of our focal points to talk about this and bring an awareness to this topic.
Yeah. And what's interesting about that's coming to my mind is, because I believe that we are infinite beings, and we're so much more than these physical bodies. And it's almost as if, and I don't think it's hidden, but it's almost as if it's hiding in plain sight, that we already have all of these abilities. And it's kind of funny, and I don't know if you actually had David Icke talking about this, but Elon Musk is kind of out there saying, oh yeah, this is the thing that will really take us all down. But yet he's saying, oh, but if you'd like to implant one in your brain, you can have mine.
I think there's actually a video that we put out today of David Icke that talks about it.
Okay, I did think I heard it then. Yeah.
The watch out for the false prophets. But you said something. It's already here. All the things that we're looking, or people are looking to do with technology, they're already here. And I want to ask everyone who doubts that a simple question. Where do these ideas come from? How do we come up with the idea that we want to television, telephone, the transportation of information, instant information, internet? Where do those ideas come from? We need to ask ourselves, how do we imagine things? Where does our imagination come from? And understand that what we're doing with technology, and ironically, we're using technology to transport this message. This is not lost on me. I'm not saying, I'm not saying I'm there, you're there, we're there. I'm saying we need to give ourselves the chance to discover our true potential, and that we actually have these abilities. And if I go into a deep meditation, on more than one occasion, I was able to communicate with others that were in deep meditation, that were on the other side of the earth, which means that distance means nothing when these things come into play. And as I said, if we now cut this cord and don't explore this and don't revive these abilities, we will make an irreversible choice as a species. And I think it's not just dangerous, it's more than that. I think it's actually the end of another civilization, as we've seen so many times in the past.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, one of the comments is about researching Tartaria. I didn't know that Tartaria went, well, actually, I guess I have seen that. The buildings had antennas and things that it's kind of questionable, like, how did all these buildings end up here?
I'm by no means an expert on Tartaria. All I can tell you is an interesting thing that I found. I was looking at old maps, old world maps, and there's a lot of curious things going on with these old maps. But one thing that I noticed, and I can't tell you exactly, was somewhere around 1741, 42, 43, where in those maps, Tartaria was there as this huge empire. And all of a sudden, the next year, when a new map came out or whatever, it was gone. And so, interestingly enough, for the past 10 years, Vladimir Putin has been talking about this and kind of trying to bring the awareness for this lost empire, and probably with it the technology. But uh, the problem is we're so deprived of real history. We don't really know anything, as you know, as many say, beyond our lived memory. And so everything we perceive or we've been taught as history is highly questionable. I question it sincerely, because everywhere where I look deeper, I find dead ends or just complete fabrications. So, you know, we do live probably in a simulation, so we're going to have to figure this out and see what it's really all about.
Well, so 2022 is a good year, I think, for us to. I've heard a lot of people actually kind of negative and demoralized after what's been going on. And as an inspired human, inspired channel person, what would you say to shift that?
Well, first of all, in the indigenous culture, and this, I love listening to their stories. And many don't know this, even in today's tribes, that there was a time when the peacemaker came to the indigenous people when they were at their pinnacle of warfare, and you know, horrible things were going on, and the peacemaker is very similar, actually, the story of Jesus and other figures like that, came to the indigenous people and taught them a new way of peace and peaceful coexistence. And among the laws that were given to the people was never take hope away from the people. And I believe hope is let's say hope is the lowest positive vibration that you could kind of aspire to, right?
Right. Yeah.
It's this thing that you hang on to when nothing else works. But first, let's not take hope away from the people, because we are the people. And everything that we see in the world today started with an idea in someone's mind. Any campaign, any system, any political party, everything that we see manifested in the world today started as an idea. So we ourselves are capable of receiving, creating, co-creating ideas, and as such, we have the same potential. You know, that these ideas grow and manifest in the world. And so rather than looking at it as a bystander and saying, hey, this is, you know, this is where this whole thing is going, and it's not changeable, we can change it every day in every way. We can change it. And the first thing is to realize that we can. And then the second thing is to actually take inspired action to do it. And so, no, I absolutely don't see a hopeless time, but certain things are crumbling and falling apart. And I think this hurts people because it's the only thing they've ever known. The system is falling apart. It was always destined to fall apart. And now it's happening and it hurts. And there's a grieving period and all of that. But I believe what comes afterwards is up to us. So that's where the power really lies.
Yeah. And so I kind of seeing in my mind's eye too, that how important is to recognize that two things, and you've actually often said this in a great way, is it's like when you're healing, that these things surface and sometimes they're ugly and nasty, and but it's coming to the top and surfacing so that it can be cleared. And I do think that that's a lot of what's happening right now. The truth can no longer be hidden. And I don't know if that's truly because the vibration on the planet's raising or the consciousness is raising, but things that were hidden from us are becoming more obvious to those that are more awakened.
Yes.
So with that, I do think that we have an opportunity and an obligation to intentionally say, okay, well, what is it that we do want to create now? We do see all these systems crumbling. So what could we co-create that would be our ideal utopia, not their idea of utopia?
Well, I think their idea is more a dystopia than a utopia.
Yeah, well, yes, that's true. So
I have, for the past 10, 11 years, my wife and I have really dedicated ourselves to a vision that has captured our minds and hearts in the best possible way. And we talk about this a lot. And it's a vision that is being laid out in 10 books, the Ringing Cedar books, which were the first book was published in the mid 90s in Russia. And it spread like wildfire, literally without any marketing. I think it was translated probably into 20 languages, sold tens of millions of copies. And if you will, it's hard to describe these books other than saying it's truth, the unfiltered truth about really everything, but it speaks about a lost culture. And this is why this exploration of our origins and of our true culture is so important to me, because we're always looking to create something new, not asking if there's something in our past that already was the pinnacle of how to live together. And this, as you say, this has been hidden from us, but it's not lost. And so in these 10 books, the Ringing Cedar books, the Anastasia books by Vladimir Megre, this vision is being laid out on how families, on how communities can live together independently, every family for themselves, be independent and self-sufficient, at the same time solve all the ecological, economical, psychological problems that we have, and really create a beautiful, loving future for this whole planet. Now, this sounds utopian, but it is laid out in very practical steps and terms. These are the best books I've ever read. I keep rereading them. I keep
It's the Ringing Cedar, CEDAR.
yes,
Okay.
like the tree. And absolutely the most powerful books. And so this is the vision that we are inspired to help show to the world and help bring to the world. And we're doing it in our own way every day. And so I believe there's been nothing more powerful that I've found in this. And if people read these books, and I know in today's time, in today's day and age, 10 books sounds like a lot, but it's the best possible way to understand where we came from, why we are where we are, and most importantly, how we can change it to a real paradise future.
I love it. I'm gonna have to get those. So I had an opportunity to read your bio, and I apologize, I didn't read it for everyone, but
No
I will
worries at all.
that you co-led the Welcome to Freedom movement. I want to know a little bit about that and how because what I found interesting is that you're originally from Austria.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so I'd like to hear about, I mean, you have a unique perspective on freedom and why you came to America.
Well, the Welcome to Freedom movement in Austria was something that was probably, looking back, ahead of its time. And basically what we're seeing now manifested really in everyone's life almost on Earth today, this huge power grab and control system that seeks to control every aspect of our lives. We saw this 15 years ago. At least we saw that it was becoming bigger and bigger and bigger, and that it has, already imposed so much upon us. So we started a group, a movement that educated people on how the system works, which was basically if you will, a spiritual legal movement, because we came from a spiritual standpoint, but we also talked about the legal implications and how people are, where they enter this legal system. Because in our system, everything is forbidden unless it's allowed. That's how our legal system kind of operates. And so you can't do this and that and that and that and that unless it's allowed, or you have a license or a permit, which we perceive as normal, but it's really completely ridiculous. We're free beings on this earth. We have the same right to be here as anyone else. So we educated people on this and what it means to be a free being, and that it's also the most responsible way of living. And I think the reason why this probably originated in the center of Europe is because the spirit of freedom is completely lost in Europe for the masses. Whereas in America, freedom has at least culturally been a concept that was constantly talked about in movies, in the pop culture, in politics. It is a word that many people use and some people misuse, but still it is a principle. Whereas in Europe, it is basically, truthfully, it's unknown, because at least from what we know from history, there's been monarchies over monarchies, and basically people never had that experience. Whereas here, at least for a few decades or centuries, people had a greater experience of freedom than anywhere else, probably. And so I was always, as a child, very, very little child, drawn to America. I believe in many past lives I've lived here. So this is home. This is, for me, for us, it was like coming home. And I also believe that America, along with a few other regions of the world, it has the greatest potential to become the center for this positive transformation. Simply because ideas are, how can I say that? In my experience, anywhere else you go, the cultural imprint is so strong that ideas that are different have such a hard time being accepted by people. But in America, it's not like that. In America, the culture is very young. And so the cultural imprint is not as strong. And so when a new or original or better idea comes along, people tend to accept it easier and at least explore it. And so that's why I believe that this is the greatest opportunity that we have here in North America to actually really start this transformational movement.
I never thought of it that way, but that does make a lot of sense, because I mean, at least we've been a mix of everything here, right? And whether we're free or not, I mean, we were founded on the Boston Tea Party, where people were saying, hell no, we're not going to do this. We're not going to comply. So, should it be unusual that we're now saying, hey, we're not going to comply with these new made up ideas? That's not the best way to say it, but mandates, so yeah, I do think that we could, in the United States, be an epicenter. However, I think that, in addition, look at Australia. We're seeing a lot of that video coverage, and it's pretty extreme. And so what I'm wondering is, like, if that extreme, those extreme measures that are being projected onto those people, that if that actually is going to cause them to awaken even more, if it will cause an opposite reaction of uprising. And
I do believe so. I do honestly believe that, and that's why this system operates in most places. Certainly not Australia or China, or New Zealand for that matter. I think operates with a it's basically a push and pull mechanism. So you impose something very strict on the people, you lock them down, and very strict restrictions. And then just when they're about to break, you let off and you let them out, and you kind of ease up again, and you normalize the situation, but you have gained ground. And so the next time you impose, you've already, gained that much ground. You're going, it's closing in and closing in until there's absolutely no freedom left. But what it does, like you say, for those who have even a spark, even a spark of the potential to awaken within them, that's what's happening. And with every time, every time this happens, things become clearer, truths become clearer. I mean, we should be dead by now, right? I mean, I live in Tennessee. Our life here is basically like in 2019. We have no mandates, no restrictions, no passports, no nothing. It is literally like in 2019. And we have with, for sure not the healthiest population in Tennessee. There's obesity, there's stress, there's heart diseases, there's addictions, prescription drugs, and all of that. So we don't have really the best base situation here. But as a matter of fact, I don't hear sirens all day. We don't have a health crisis. Nothing really bad is going on. And what we're seeing is that we have a perception crisis, really. What we have is, in this interconnected world, people don't realize, when you live in one of these epicenters like Australia, people don't realize that there are places in the world where people live completely normal and that nothing bad's going on. And so part of this is to show this more, interconnect more, and show people, yes, there's plenty of places in the United States where people live completely freely and normal. Now, if all of these health authorities were right, we should be extremely sick or dead, but we're not. So this, all of this, slowly but surely, begins to gestate in people's minds and hearts, and they slowly but surely see something is really wrong with this whole picture. This doesn't seem to be what they're saying it is. And so I believe at this point, the more pressure you apply, the faster this awakening is happening. I don't see that this could ever really succeed in the long run, but I do see a fork in the road where certain people will go down this way and other people will go down this way. And then we'll have to figure out how we're going to coexist, and how we're going to peacefully coexist. Because I've already made a choice. My family's already made a choice. We're staying 100% pure, biological human beings, and that's not going to change no matter what. Right. Yeah. So this is
pure bloods.
and it's not just us, it's millions and millions and millions of people. And, if you will, that's the hill I'm willing to die on. So that's not going to change. And because that's the way for so many people, I do believe this fork in the road is coming. And then it's going to be a matter of how to figure this coexistence out.
Yeah. So one of the things that, because I have I'm of two different thoughts about this, because I do think that our consciousness and our vibration impact what we actually experience and see. And so if we collectively are all envisioning it unfolding in a utopian way, we can co-create that. And like you said, we still have to take action to create that. And as a matter of fact, are you familiar with Dolores Cannon's work?
Yes.
Okay. So she talked about, and actually she did these hypnosis sessions on thousands of people that talked about what I think is this time, where it was a splitting of the worlds. And I think the book of Ra also talks about it in terms of, positive polarity and negative polarity. And so, what I kind of think is possible is that our vibrations will be so extremely different that we won't even be, the awareness of one another might not even be there, that it could get bigger, the gap could get bigger and bigger and bigger. So
it has already started.
Yeah.
It's already started. I believe I had this conversation 12, 13 years ago with someone, and we were talking about this new vibration that's coming up, and a new way of living and a new way of existing together. And the question was, what's going to happen to all the people that are not aligned with that are not going along, that are not waking up? And I had this weird download, a thought that said, well, they're just going to kind of go away, and we're not going to really know, and maybe even lose the memory of them ever being here.
Yeah.
And I think now, looking back, if I look at the last 10 years in my life, in our life, so many people that were in our lives are not present anymore. And I don't even have an awareness of them, where they are or what they're doing.
What happened to them. Yeah.
And I think that's just for those who I even still remember. And there might be many that I don't even remember anymore. And I believe that's the vibrational shift that we're seeing. So if we take into account that we're not really physical beings, not really, that there really is no physical matter. If you break it down, it's all
Right.
vibration. And then we
Right.
take into account that with our senses, we can perceive about 1% of the light that's there, right? So we really have no freaking idea what reality is as such. So there's 99% of reality that happens outside of our perception.
Right.
And so what a new earth means, how this all manifests and unfolds, it's really a work in progress. I can't give you a definitive answer. All I'm thinking is that if these past years were an indicator for how this is going, then it's exactly how you just described it. It's simply going to be an experience where the people, and I think Dolores Cannon called them backdrop people in many in many instances,
Yeah. Yeah.
are simply going to be greatly reduced and not there anymore. They probably fulfilled their purpose, or they are embarking on their own journey in another realm.
Well, yeah, it's cool to think about, but I don't know when I'll be able to truly grasp it, you know? Right?
It's the thing is, we're such multidimensional beings.
Yeah.
And I love this saying. It's before enlightenment, chop wood and carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood and carry water. You know, when we get too theoretical and when we lose ourselves in these thoughts and not seek for practical application, that's why I call practical spirituality. I think that's where a lot of the answers come from, is when we do often the mundane things, you know, that we do in this life, that the greatest epiphanies come. And so this experience is so multifaceted. There is not one factual reality. There appear to be many dimensions to this, and depending on our own vibration, we access more of this or more of that.
So tell us about what techniques you and Kristin use. I know you meditate and things like that. Like, do you have a daily ritual or?
Yes. Well, first of all, it begins early for me, very early. I have this ritual before I go to sleep at night, that I thank the creator for waking me up at the perfect time. And I put it totally in the hands of the creator what that time is. And it's usually, it can be anywhere from 3:30 to 5 o'clock. That's usually where it begins. And the mornings are, first of all, breath work. Breath is really it's really where God comes to you. It's through the breath, and we have no idea how powerful this really is and what you can activate in your body, in your spine. So I encourage everyone to start with some sort of breath work. I love Wim Hof because it's so easy to do, but this is really the activation, and that's what at least allows me to go deep into meditation, is the breath work. And then it's really a connecting with the creator in the morning, thanking the creator for speaking through me, acting through me, expressing through me. And sometimes it's vision work where I'm clearly being shown what the next steps are. But that's the foundation for every day. And if for some reason that foundation is being delayed, I can feel it in my spirit. You know, if something unexpected happens in the morning and I get to my meditation later, I can just feel it in my spirit. It's kind of like, you know, it's kind of like when you're an athlete and for some reason you have to jump right into the action and don't warm up and don't prepare your body, you'll feel it later. And so this is kind of how this goes. I believe these rituals weren't probably necessary in the beginning. They're necessary now because we're so detached from it in our daily lives. And so this is really what our days start with. And it didn't used to be like that. It was sometimes, you know, an occasion where we meditated. But years ago, we really committed to meditating daily and seeking this connection daily. And it has completely transformed our lives. Completely. Like nothing is the way it was back then. And it keeps changing and it keeps getting better every day.
So what kind of changes have you seen and what caused you to intentionally say, okay, we're going to do this like in a more consistent way?
Honestly, nothing else worked. I was brought up in a family. My dad's a businessman, and he's kind of a go-getter guy, and good at it too. And so I was an athlete growing up, and the mentality was really make it happen, right? So you go
Yeah.
and you push hard, and no matter what it takes, and you get it done, right? And this was kind of the old paradigm that I was brought up in. And the further I progressed in life, the less it worked for me. I would put in 16, 17, 18 hours, do stuff, be constantly creating, active, pushing, calling, doing, emailing, and
Uh-huh.
nothing worked. And at some point, I said to myself, literally, I've done everything one could possibly do. There's nothing else I can do. There's no doing anymore left. It's just, that's it. And it didn't work. So I surrendered. I said, what the heck? I'm just going to sit here, close my eyes, and I'm going to surrender. And I surrendered into a deep meditation. And for the first time, I believe when that happened, I believe I came out 90 minutes later or 2 hours later, kind of having completely lost track of time. And I figured for the next days or weeks, I don't know how long really, whenever I would hit this mental block and I said, damn, what else could I do? Who else could I call? What else? Making shit happen. I said, okay, I surrender. And so I would go to my bed or our bedroom and just meditate for hours and hours. And something began to be dissolved inside of me. All these ideas and all these old paradigms began to dissolve. And it was just peaceful. There was just peace. It was okay. It was acceptance of what is rather than trying to make something else happen. And that was the foundation. It was the acceptance of the present moment, not wanting to change it, not trying to fight it. And it brings such peace to your life. And that peace never really fully goes away. It can be felt more or less at times, but it never really goes away.
Yeah. It's
And
total bliss too, isn't it? I mean, to be able to get lost for an hour, 2 hours at a time. And yeah.
exactly. And so that actually began to really internally change how I look at life, how I look at things. And that's why I say we do things that are being put in front of us every day, but it's not a long-term plan. It's an evolution, it's an expansion, and it comes from that place of peace.
I two things. So one is I still hear people say, well, I want to find peace, I want to go get peace, or I want to get happiness. And and I guess that's sometimes people just aren't ready to see that that's actually within them, and being able to get to that point to just surrender. And and sometimes it's a discipline though too.
It's 100% discipline.
Yeah. But I think once you do it so much, it becomes like you can't not do it, because it's like brushing your teeth. So
And you touch on something important here. People, this is another thing that I've seen in the spiritual community, this lack of discipline. If it doesn't come easy, if it doesn't automatically happen, then it's wrong. And one thing that people underestimate is the power of their programs and the power of the body as a program. Your body is a very sophisticated thing that will produce certain hormones at certain times, that will produce certain states at certain times, because it's programmed to do that, because your lifestyle has programmed it. So when all of a sudden, instead of stressing out about something, instead of trying to make shit happen, you just sit and get quiet, your body can really rebel and say, hey, this is not what we usually do at this time. We should be stressed out. We should be working. We should be this.
yeah.
And this is the discipline that it requires to silence the body and really become the master again. Not make the body your master, but you be the master of your body. And it does require discipline. But there's a difference between effort and discipline. I always say effort is the thing that you use effort to do something that you don't want to do in the first place, and you don't really have a fulfillment that comes out of it. Versus discipline, I believe, is the thing that we require to do something that we know is going to make us feel good. But it's just this initial getting off the couch and doing it. Actually, this is the discipline part, and it's so worth it, And the greatest meditators and the greatest teachers have absolute discipline for this every day.
So, one of the cool things that also comes from that, and I remember I caught this video where you had like this piece of paper and it was a straight line, like trying to make it happen. And then you had like a squiggly line. Sorry, my drawing kind of, but, and you were showing that in your life, to create the success that you've created, it's unfolded on more of that squiggly line.
Well,
I'm rephrasing what you said, but do you know what I'm talking about?
I know exactly what you're talking about. And this is all the beauty. See, people start here and they want to get here. And everyone wants to get here right away because they think this is where all the beauty, all the happiness, all the joy is. Yeah. Truth is, all the happiness, all the joy is here. It's in the journey. But nobody wants to hear that, especially when your bank account's empty, your rent's overdue, or you're in bad health, or your relationships are not working out, whatever it is. Nobody wants to hear that. But the truth is that everything that you're seeking is in the journey. And what this little diagram was really meant to show is that when you put yourself in the state of what this perceived destination feels like, that will create the path. But the path won't be a straight line. The path will be a lot of different variations that will teach you and move you and elevate you and propel you. And it's so different. It's so different from what we've been taught. That's why so many people struggle with it.
Yeah, but it's so much more fun too.
I agree.
Because then, I think the reason why there's the misconception that you don't have to take any action is because because it is easy when you come from that place of the inspiration within you, and you're in that feeling of already having it, then the things start to just show up. But the thing is, those things show up because you have to show up too.
100%.
And so, yeah.
And there's another aspect of this. Sorry to interrupt, but there's another aspect of this. The way we outpicture what is, what was supposed to happen and what happens are often two different things. And just because something seems like a roadblock or an obstacle, oftentimes it's the greatest opportunity. I mean, you might get this amazing meeting that you've been wishing for, waiting for with someone, and you're ready to go. You're dressed to the nines. You're everything's working out. You jump in your car, and it breaks down. And so I'm going to be late. This is it. This is my one chance. But in the breaking down of the car, someone pulls up, and it might be the love of your life, or it might be an even better opportunity. So often, these things don't come the way we expect them to come. And nothing of the things that I ever desired in my life came the way I expected it to come. Ever. Never did it show up in the way I would have imagined. And so, this is where the meditation, this is where the inner peace comes in, where you go, hey, I'm exactly where I'm meant to be. This is exactly what was supposed to happen. I accept this moment. And that's magic that can happen once you do that.
Yeah. Hey, can I share I see it in my background. I want to share some of your store.
Oh, sure. Please go ahead.
Because I hope I can get the right. Yeah. Okay. That's it, right?
Yes, that's it.
I love this. Lion, not sheep.
Yeah, that's the newest one.
So I want to know about the story, the inspiration behind that. I mean, it's pretty obvious that I guess that's sadly the running joke, that there's a lot of sheep right now.
So I have nothing to do with the creation of that's all Christine. We do
Oh,
talk
she's
about,
awesome. Go, Christine.
we talk about ideas and on our walks, and then things come up, and she'll sit down and create something. Is very, it's a very inspired thing. But this particular thing was born out of, it's interesting that you ask. I posted I reposted a statement by, and I don't know if you've been following this whole Novak Djokovic story in Australia. Djokovic is the #1 tennis player, and he was supposed to fly into Australia for the Australian Open, and he's not vaccinated, and he had a exemption, and it all fell apart, and he was kind of basically, in detention there until this was all figured out. And his dad put out a very passionate statement, but so many beautiful things that he touched on, because it was born out of this bigger idea that we're in a space right now as humanity where we need to really focus on freedom, and that this is being taken away. At any rate, I reposted that statement with a picture of Djokovic, and on my music page on Facebook, and this thing blew up. It blew up completely. Like it got 110,000 comments and
Wow.
went around the world. But it was also, I mean, I honestly believe that the Facebook algorithm works in very one-sided ways. So the comment section is so filled with, sheeple comments. It's absolutely unbelievable.
Oh,
How many?
wow.
Yeah. And so Christina and I were reading through the comments, and she was just like, I can't believe how many people go along with this and how many people want to enforce this even more. And so that's where this was born from, lions, not sheep. And she sat down and made it. Yeah. That's how this comes about.
I haven't ordered mine yet, but I'm getting mine today.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
And then the other one, I just love the, and I've seen you wear that one, the unapologetically free.
Yes.
I think that that's just so important right now. And I think even just wearing something like that really does put out a statement into the world. And, even something that small of putting that energy out there, like, I think that that's part of what can shift this.
Well, masks have become a statement for people, right? I mean, they wear them for so many reasons other than what perceived health reasons they might have. I'm obviously stating it's perceived because we know, but if that can make such a huge statement, then sometimes a shirt, a hoodie can too. And everywhere I go, and I love wearing the unapologetically free hoodie. Everywhere I go, people ask me about it, and are just, so you are, in many ways, you are giving a signal to others, and it's kind of like okay, we get each other, right? But also a reminder that we don't need a reason to be free. We don't need permission to be free. We don't need to justify our freedom. It comes, it's a package deal.
Wow.
We're born free, and I for one, I'm not willing to give that up.
Yeah, well, shoot, you guys came to America for this, and
Indeed, we came. Yeah.
So, so the store is, where do they go? Just Inspired. I've got Inspired store, my spread shop. I have that. I'll have that in the comments, so people can link to it. And then of course your channel is just Inspired channel.
Yeah, so that's the website, the inspiredchannel.net. And if there, you can go anywhere from there, right? To our YouTube channel, or to the merch store, or our Instagram, or wherever you want to go.
So, so I probably 2 last questions, and then if there's anything you'd like to share before we wrap it up. In the beginning of the conversation, we talked about how we already have a lot of these infinite abilities and we're just now starting to discover. I think that we're still only on the tip of the iceberg of what we're truly capable of. Do you have any recommendations? You've shared what you do, but do you have any recommendations for people to develop those latent abilities?
Well, honestly, the foundation for it all, and this is so far, anything I've ever learned, whether that was a physical ability or whether that was an internal ability, it started with a different state of perception and awareness. So basically a meditative state. You go into, so that's kind of the foundation for this. But it really depends on what it is that you desire to do. I would say that the first thing is to examine your belief system. That's really the first thing, because you cannot do something that you're programmed to not believe in. If you're programmed to believe in a certain limitation, you cannot explore that ability within you. That's the first thing. But it all really begins in meditation. And I believe that which is important to you, for some people, it's telepathic communication, right? And this is something that you can easily train. Once you're a little bit more of an advanced meditator, where it's not challenging for you to go in that state anymore. And if you by any chance know someone else who meditates, set a certain date and time. So you will go into meditation at the same time. And then what I would suggest is that one is you agree, one is the receiver and one is the sender. And what you do is you focus on a color, or you focus on a word, or you focus on an image, and you hold that image in that meditative state. And later on, you call each other, you meet up and see what happened. Did the receiver receive the image, the color, the word? And practice this. Christine and I are at the point now where we could be in completely different situations apart from each other. And we will receive this, we will simultaneously have the same thought, call each other. It's like a normal thing now. We don't even point it out anymore. But we have literally trained this. It is something that, like anything else, had you been brought up with this as a child, this would be as normal. It is normal with relatives, more normal. It is pretty standard with children and their mothers. But in an adult situation, it's just something that needs to be learned again and trained again. But that's an easy way to do it.
Yeah, it's funny because, I mean, look, we have these with us 24/7 these days, and it's there for that communication, which is great. I mean, this is what we're using right now, right? We have Zoom to be able to have this opportunity. But I think that that's part of the reason why we haven't trained those skills, because telepathy, I actually think is much easier than the general population believes it to be, right? Just like you said, I mean, it's gotten to the point where you and your wife are just like, don't even need to say it because you already know it.
Yes. And also, the more you do it, the more it begins. Language is very limited, it not very expressive compared to our other capabilities. So in this realm, you begin to send out images and feelings, and that's where the real beauty begins. That's where really beautiful things begin to happen. It's also how co-creation works. So really just begin with a simple thing like that and practice it until it works. Don't give up on that, because when it begins to work, a whole new world opens up for you.
Yeah, awesome. If you have time, I actually do have one more question that I think you're pretty skilled at. So I always believe that we should ask better questions. And what I mean by that is, like, if somebody's like, oh, why me? Or, oh, why this always happens? And those are downward directing questions. And I think I've seen you do some pretty cool questions. So I was wondering if you had any special advice on how to ask ourselves better questions.
There's this thing, there's closed questions and there's open questions. And the closed questions are the ones you just mentioned. They already feel closed. They already lead to a dead end. Whereas an open question is, what is there for me to see here? What is there for me to explore here? What is the message I'm receiving here? Or what is underneath this feeling? That's also an important question. When we hit a certain dead end over and over in life, right? Because those patterns happen, then the question would be, if I'm frustrated, what's underneath the frustration? Really discover where this is coming from. Because once you do that, once you really go through the layers, because there's a reason why you hit the same dead end. I mean, that's something that's in your past that wants to be seen and heard and healed. So this is really the foundation. So you ask, and you have to be honest with yourself. What's underneath the feeling of frustration? Maybe it's sadness. What's underneath the sadness? Maybe it's hurt. And you'll begin to get images, a situation, a memory will pop up. And then there's a point where you go, okay, this happened in my life. This hurt me, or this person did me wrong, or something bad happened. Am I willing to forgive now unconditionally? Because when this forgiveness comes, that pattern is broken. It's over with. You're done. You have healed that situation, and you can actually move on in life. And these questions are very, very important. So and that's just one avenue where questions matter. Questions matter everywhere. And I would actually encourage everyone to explore what they're asking. Like you said, why always me? Why does this happen to me? And realize it doesn't happen to you, it happens for you, so you can see something bigger there, so you can get the bigger picture.
Right. So even just changing that into why is this happening for me?
Yeah.
Right?
Bingo. That opens up a whole new world of possibilities.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's definitely a good lead into being able to do some good inner work by going through the questions of the emotions, because that definitely will lead you to what that old belief was, or what the trauma was that would cause the belief, right?
To be honest, this is, and I hate to sound like an infomercial, but it's a 3-step process. It's always a 3-step process with the clients that we work with. It's always that. Number one is, when people really want to change something, and usually it's because they're not happy or satisfied with what they have in life, or what their life is. So the first step is, why? What happened in my past that keeps me coming here? That's the healing journey. And there's processes for that. I encourage everyone to read The Journey by Brenton Bass, one of the best books and one of the best healing processes. And do a journey with a practitioner. It's a fairly short process, a couple hours, but you can really facilitate some deep healing. When that healing has happened, you have literally opened up a whole new world for yourself. That's where step 2 comes in. It's where you actually discover why you're here, what your purpose is. You can't do that when you're struggling all the time. You don't get there. So when the healing has happened, the second step is to discover that, and that would kind of happen by default. And then the third step is to take that inspired action to put yourself in the state of what it is that you truly desire to live. So that it's fairly easy in terms of comprehending it, but it does require discipline to show up for that, and a decision, a commitment that you're not going to settle for anything less than you could possibly be.
I love it. So if somebody wanted to go to get coaching with you, do they go to the inspiredchannel.net, or
Yes, please go. You can send us an email. We are very limited right now on new clients with capacity, but please do reach out, because when something opens up, or when there's a new opening, then absolutely. And it's our greatest intention to, through the channel, through seminars, through the live streams, to really inspire people to get on that journey. It's really all within, and it's all within you. That's really important to know. It's not within me. I'm not the guru that's going to change your life. I could be the one that helps you see certain things, or point in a certain direction, but it's really within you. And don't let anyone else tell you otherwise.
Right. Well, and I think that that's why you guys have had such great success. And at the time you wrote your bio, you had over 200, but now you have over 300,000 plus followers. I've lost count. So
Then I probably, whenever, see, as an artist, I had to write and send out bios all the time. And it's just something I don't really enjoy to write because it's always looking back. And
yeah.
I'm here for looking into what's next. So that's why this bio is not updated. Yeah.
That's okay. I think the most important part is that you're putting out beautiful, loving, wonderful energy. You guys are doing great work, and more success and blessings to you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Same to you. And thank you so much for having me. It's an honor and a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, you all have an amazing day and welcome to 2022. Okay.
Perfect.